Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's session on pioneering our understanding of the human brain. Unfortunately, our presenter, Dr. Khara Ramos, is ill and won't be able to join us today. But Dr. James Natt and Dr. Saskia Hendricks have kindly offered to present in her place on the same topic, neuroethics, an essential partner for neuroscience. Dr. Natt is the NINDS Program Director in Systems and Computational Neuroscience and Team Lead for the NIH BRAIN Integrative and Quantitative Approaches. Dr. Saskia Hendricks is an MD PhD and a postdoctoral fellow at the Department of Bioethics at the National Institute of Health Clinical Center. My name is Dr. Roshana Kashimun, and I will be your moderator for today's event. We are delighted to bring you this educational web seminar presented by LabRoots. We would like to extend our special thanks to the BRAIN Initiative Program Directors, and in particular, Dr. James Natt, for all their efforts in organizing today's session. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that this event is interactive. We encourage you to participate by submitting your questions during the presentation. Simply click on the Ask a Question box located at the far left of your screen, then type your questions into the drop-down box. Our speakers will respond to your questions following this presentation. This presentation is educational and thus offers free continuing education credits. Please click on the Continuing Education Credits tab located at the top right corner of the presentation window and follow the process to obtain your credits. Now, without any further ado, please join me in welcoming our speakers, Dr. James Natt and Dr. Saskia Hendricks.
Thank you, Ro, for the introduction, and our best goes out to Ro. I'm sorry, to Khara and her illness. I'm sure she will be well soon. And I do thank my colleague Saskia in helping to. We'll do our best to present the material that Khara had prepared for this. So we have a usual disclaimer here, but let's get straight to the outline of the talk. So what we're going to talk about first is what is neuroethics? How is it different from other kinds of ethics? And how does it apply to what we're talking about here in the BRAIN Initiative? Then we're going to talk a little bit about progress in the neurotechnology that we're making in our tool and technology development in the NIH BRAIN Initiative. And then we will finish up with a section on neuroethics of the brain and how neuroethics is actually a global issue. So going to the first part of this, in neuroethics, I'll let Saskia, who is our real neuroethics expert here, carry on.
So neuroethics is a field that involves looking at the ethics of neuroscience and the neuroscience of ethics. We'll mostly focus on the first of those two, looking at the ethical, legal, and societal implications of neuroscience. So I should say that neuroscience is not a totally standalone field. We have significant overlap and draw on experience gathered in bioethics in general, including research ethics and clinical ethics. So neuroethics as a tool of the advancements of neuroscience. Neuroscience questions. Research raises ethical questions beyond typical research risks or compliance issues. The most fundamental aspects of ourselves, such as personality and temperament, can be changed rapidly due to brain injury and, in some cases, brain interventions. Familiar topics in bioethics, such as privacy, safety, fairness, and informed consent, can take on new complexities given the unprecedented precision of new neurotechnologies and tools and the brain's centrality to human identity. Questions that are important to address include, for example, what are the long-term responsibilities of researchers and funders to people who receive implanted neural devices? Will improved understanding of brain circuitry allow for prediction of risk for future brain disorders and resilience against injury? How might this, in turn, affect healthcare, insurability, and healthcare policy? And how might new neurotechnologies disrupt fundamental notions of free will and agency? And what broader implications might there be for legal policies or commercial realms? Neuroethicists can work with neuroscientists to address these and other questions that arise in association with neuroscience research. Neuroethicists can help scan the horizon and assist in anticipating and navigating ethical concerns. This neuroethics can serve as a useful tool that scientists can harness to facilitate neuroscience research. Moving to progress in neurotechnology and the NIH BRAIN Initiative.
Okay, so I'll just review a little bit about overall overview of the BRAIN Initiative, the vision for the NIH BRAIN Initiative. And as actually we talked in an earlier session this morning, what we do is guided by a document called the BRAIN 2025 report, setting out the goals for us to see circuits in action, to understand complex behaviors such as perception and cognition, emotion, and how the brain circuits dysfunction can cause brain diseases and disorders. The idea being that if we can make adjustments at the circuit level in the brain, we can make this the basis of our diagnostics, and the normalization of circuit function is one of our goals. One of the fundamental things about the BRAIN Initiative and our guidance was the first half of the BRAIN Initiative should focus largely on technology and device development, as well as development in other areas such as the neuroethics areas. And then the idea is to transform into more investigative neuroscience questions and neuroethics questions, using the tools or addressing the neuroethics issues of the tools that were developed in the first half of the BRAIN Initiative. And on this slide, you can see there a Journal of Neuroscience issue that includes actually a summary article on the goal and the visions and the progress to date on what we've been doing in the BRAIN Initiative, and we would encourage you to have a look at that. So BRAIN funds tools development to improve health. And so I had sort of just said this, is especially our early efforts are to develop tools. And on this slide, you can see several of the human disorders and conditions that will directly be addressed by some of the early work that's being done in the BRAIN Initiative. And the examples here are epilepsy, stroke patients, blindness, traumatic brain injury, and the use of deep brain stimulation for Parkinson's disease and the neuropsychiatric conditions like obsessive compulsive disorder. So these are all examples of therapeutic impacts that we expect the BRAIN Initiative to have. And all these have neuroethical issues that need to be addressed in parallel. Neurotechnology leading the way for neuroscience. So the projected budget for the BRAIN Initiative through 2026 now is over $4 billion of expenditures projected for the total lifetime of the BRAIN Initiative. So we expect the BRAIN Initiative to have large and lasting impacts in the field of neuroscience, and we hope as well in neuroethics. There are many other brain projects around the world. It's not just the NIH BRAIN Initiative. There are other actually U.S. agencies that are involved in the BRAIN Initiative, and as you can see here, there are also international partners, the European Union, Korea, Japan, China, Australia, and Canada, to name a few. So I think the next thing we will do is get more deeply into some of the neuroethics issues, and I'll let Saskia address those.
So emerging biotechnologies have a key role in driving progress in biomedical research. It's important to unpack the ethical implications of this science, specifically pertaining to the development and integration of those technologies into scientific and clinical practice. This helps to ensure that science moves forward in a way that holds the highest ethical standards. So ethics has been a focus from the start of the BRAIN Initiative onwards. President Obama at the time charged the Presidential Commission for the Study of Bioethical Issues to look at neuroethics. They've had multiple meetings and issued a two-part report to respond to this field. And one of their main recommendations was to integrate neuroethics from the beginning in any neuroscience research program. Now, the neuroethics strategy for the NIH BRAIN Initiative emphasizes proactive, ongoing assessment of the neuroethical implications of the development and application of brain-funded tools and neurotechnologies. In order to pursue this strategy, we work on various axes. We have a Neuroethics Working Group, which I'll go in more detail in a minute. We have published a document called Neuroethics Guiding Principles. We host topical workshops on emerging ethical challenges. We also have a team of program directors of the different NIH teams that discuss the ethical challenges that come up in their research. And lastly, we fund neuroethics research itself. So the NIH BRAIN Neuroethics Working Group is fortunate to have members from all over the US who are experts in their respective fields. And they meet several times a year to discuss the ethical challenges that arise from NIH BRAIN research and provide recommendations for the NIH BRAIN Initiative on how to navigate those challenges. One of the main documents that this group has produced is the Neuroethics Guiding Principles, which are meant as tools for researchers in the field of neuroscience to perform their research in the most ethical way. The guiding principles include 1, making safety paramount, 2, anticipating special issues related to capacity, autonomy, and agency, 3, protect the privacy and confidentiality of neural data. Of course, it has to be sort of balanced against the benefits of sharing data. 4, predicting and planning possible malign uses of neuroscience tools and neurotechnologies, using caution, removing neuroscience tools and technologies from medical to non-medical uses, identifying and addressing specific concerns of the public about the brain, as well as encouraging public education and dialogue. Finally, to behave justly and share the benefits of neuroscience research and the resulting technologies. I recommend any and all to read the paper, which provides more details on these guiding principles. So we've also hosted various workshops on topical and key challenges. A couple of the recent examples were a workshop in October of 2017 on ethical issues in research with invasive and non-invasive neural devices in humans, a workshop in March 2018 on research with human neural tissues, such as organoids, and the Neuroethics Guiding Principles, along with the working group meetings and workshops, are efforts to establish a shared vision for the ethical conduct of human neuroscience research, and also to collect and disseminate the associated best practices. So as I mentioned, we also have funding opportunities for neuroethics research. These were the grantees of these funding opportunities in financial year 2017. And these were the grantees in financial year 2018. I will mention that, as Jim already alluded to, important neuroethics work is being done not just here, but all over the globe. For example, the Coffee Foundation is working on neuroethics issues. There was a Global Neuroethics Summit in 2017, based on which there was a paper published on main neuroethics questions to guide ethical research in the international BRAIN initiatives, as well as a special issue on neuroethics in the journal Neuron, which was published earlier this year, with various perspectives from different countries on the neuroethics challenges of today. The bottom line is that this is a transformative time for the development of novel neurotechnologies. The BRAIN Initiative is a catalyst aimed at revolutionizing our ability to record and modulate brain function for therapeutic interventions. But what are the implications of these powerful new tools and neurotechnologies for health and beyond? Now is the time to proactively consider implications for science, policy, human self-understanding, and society. And I urge you to visit the website in which we also discuss neuroethics issues. Thank you.
Ro, I think you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Absolutely correct. Thank you so much. See, now I have two things to thank you for. So thank you both, Dr. Saskia Hendricks and Dr. James Nat, for that very informative presentation. We will now begin the live Q&A portion of this presentation. As a reminder, please submit your questions for our speakers by clicking on the Ask a Question box on the far left of your screen. We will address as many questions as we have time for. We do have a question here for you. It's for both of you. It's whether the models desired in Brain Initiative research and circuit networks can intercept with models to solve ethical or biased reasoning in verifying cognitive research results or frameworks.
Wow, so if I understand the question is, will we be or can we be funding research that would actually look at the brain activities and the brain mechanisms that would be involved in assessing neuroethics? So it's like the brain studying itself. And the answer to that is actually the questions that come into the Brain Initiative funding announcements are investigator initiated. So to the extent that someone would propose studies that would do that, it would go through a peer review. And if it did well in peer review, yes, we could fund research exactly like that.
And so what does it look like for people to get involved in these neuroethics?
Well, this is a good question for Khara, but we'll take a shot at it. We have these awarded projects that have defined procedures and projects. Some of them are doing surveys and looking at probing information from the community about ethics. How would an individual get involved with this is a little more difficult question. I'm not sure certainly you can make applications. You could join a team, for example, by contacting people who are involved in neuroethical issues in your university or in your sphere of contacts and make a collective group application actually to one of the Brain Initiative neuroethics proposals. So that would be one way to become involved, but we would certainly,
I would suggest that if questions arise on the part of investigators in brain research, one of the mandates of the Neuroethics Working Group is to respond to consults that come in, consultation. They have a consultation role. So if a neuroethics question arises, you can contact the Neuroethics Division and we'll pass it on either to the working group or try to help you with it to the extent that we can. We also hope to link researchers that are interested in working together with the neuroethicists to neuroethicists. So that's one of the ways in which we try to help to the extent that those two groups cannot find each other.
And neuroethics is actually larger than just the NIH BRAIN Initiative. So certainly we would be encouraging to people to get involved at many levels, at any level. We hope that the BRAIN Initiative opens up new avenues for people to become involved in neuroethics issues and experimental research.
So we have another question for you. And also one of our attendees would like us to reintroduce you again. We are here with Dr. James Nat and Dr. Saskia Hendricks. And the question for you both is, are there any guiding principles that a psychiatrist could use from NIH to determine competency of a person, or is the decision as to a person's competency still a subjective decision of the psychiatrist, specifically as regards end-of-life and physician-assisted death?
So my part of that answer would be the Brain Initiative, our goals is to inform the research community, give avenues for understanding more about some of the neuroethical and neuropsychiatric issues in the clinic. It's not the Brain Initiative's mandate nor our goal to define what medical practice should look like. We hope that to create an environment where a consensus of the medical community involved in this sort of activities and procedures would be able to answer a question like that. So we're not trying to be dictative on issues that are really medical decisions in neuropsychiatry.
I would add to that for those types of resources, I would refer to sort of general clinical ethics literature, in which there are definitely established understandings of what should be tested during capacity assessments and what the ethical and legal definitions of capacity entail.
And I would just comment to this attendee that later on in this neuroethics track, we do have Dr. Francis Shen, who will be discussing neuroscience and the law. So do come back and join us then. All right, so we really have to move along now. I want to thank you both again for your kind offer to come and fill in for Dr. Ramos and to answer questions and to inform us about neuroethics and the BRAIN Initiative. Coming up next, we have Dr. Saskia Hendricks, who will continue the discussion about neuroethics and present on ethical issues in research with neural devices with humans. See you there.
Thank you.